The desert wind moved slowly across the plains of Mesopotamia. Dust swirled through the air, rising from the dry earth like a warning whispered by history itself. For centuries, these lands had been the meeting ground of two unstoppable forces. Two civilizations that refused to bow to one another. To the west stood the powerful Byzantine Empire, the last surviving half of the ancient Roman world. Its emperor, Justinian I, dreamed of rebuilding the glory of Rome and restoring the empire to its former greatness. To the east ruled the mighty Sassanian Empire, the proud Persian superpower commanded by the ambitious King Kavad I. For generations, the Persians had fought Rome for dominance of the east. Between them stretched a fragile frontier of fortresses, deserts, and cities constantly threatened by war, and in the year 530 AD, that fragile line would explode into one of the most legendary clashes of the ancient world. Thousands of soldiers marched toward a single fortress city, a city called Dara. The Persians believed victory would be easy. Their army was larger, stronger, and filled with elite cavalry feared across the world. But waiting for them outside the walls of Dara stood a young Roman general whose name would soon echo through history, a commander who relied not on numbers, but on brilliance, a man named Belisarius. What happened on that battlefield would shock two empires, because sometimes history is not decided by the biggest army. Sometimes it is decided by the smartest mind. And on the plains of Dara, a battle was about to unfold that would become one of the greatest tactical victories of the ancient world. For generations, Rome and Persia had stood as rivals across the Eastern world. Their borders stretched from the mountains of Armenia to the deserts of Syria. And every mile of that frontier carried the scars of war. Cities were built like fortresses. Soldiers guarded every road. Traders traveled with armed escorts because no one ever knew when the next conflict might begin. The rivalry between the Byzantine Empire and the Sassanian Empire was not just about land. It was about prestige, power, and control of the rich trade routes that connected the Mediterranean world to Asia. Silk, spices, precious metals, and countless goods passed through these lands. Whoever controlled them controlled enormous wealth. So neither empire could afford to appear weak. When tensions rose again during the reign of the Persian king Kavad I, the situation quickly escalated. Persian forces began moving toward Roman territory, threatening the eastern frontier. Their target was the Roman fortress city of Dara. Dara was no ordinary city, built to defend the empire's border. It stood as a massive stronghold facing Persian lands. Its walls were thick, its towers high, and its position strategically important. If Dara fell, the Persian army would gain a clear path into Roman territory. The responsibility of defending this vital fortress fell to a young general named Belisarius. At the time, Belisarius was not yet the legendary commander history remembers today. He was young, ambitious, and still proving himself. But those who served under him already sensed something different about their commander. Belisarius did not simply fight battles. He studied them. He observed terrain, enemy movements, and every possible advantage the battlefield could offer. And when reports arrived that a massive Persian army was marching toward Dara, Belisarius knew he was about to face the greatest challenge of his career. The Persian army was enormous. Thousands of infantry marched across the plains. Elite cavalry rode beside them, armored in steel and trained for devastating charges. Among them were the feared Persian warriors, often referred to as the Immortals, an elite unit known for discipline and deadly skill. Compared to this massive force, the Roman army defending Dara was smaller. Much smaller. Many commanders would have chosen to remain safely behind the city walls, forcing the Persians to attempt a long and difficult siege. But Belisarius had a different plan. Instead of hiding behind the fortress, he marched his army out onto the open plains outside the city. To many soldiers, this decision seemed unbelievable. Why would a smaller army fight in open terrain against superior Persian cavalry? But Belisarius understood something crucial. If he fought the battle on his own terms, he could turn the battlefield itself into a weapon. Before the Persian army arrived, Roman soldiers began digging long trenches across the plain. These trenches stretched across the battlefield in carefully planned lines. They were not random obstacles. They were traps. Persian cavalry relied on speed and momentum to overwhelm enemy formations, but these trenches would break their charges, forcing them to slow down and disrupt their formations. Behind these trenches, Belisarius positioned his infantry. His cavalry guarded both flanks. Hidden among them were mounted archers and elite allied warriors ready to strike at exactly the right moment. Everything was positioned carefully. Belisarius was not preparing for a simple defense. He was preparing for a calculated ambush. When the Persian army finally arrived, the sight must have been overwhelming. A vast sea of soldiers filled the horizon. Their banners waved in the wind, drums echoed across the plain. The Persian commanders believed victory would be swift. They had superior numbers, superior cavalry, and they believed the Romans had foolishly chosen to fight outside the safety of their walls. But as the Persian army advanced toward the Roman lines, they began to notice the trenches cutting across the battlefield. Suddenly the terrain looked less favorable. Still confident in their strength, the Persian commanders prepared their attack. The first day passed with limited fighting. Small groups of cavalry clashed, arrows flew across the battlefield. Both armies observed each other carefully, waiting for the moment to commit fully to battle. Belisarius spent the days studying Persian movements. He watched their formations, their tactics, and the way their commanders deployed their forces. Every detail mattered, because Belisarius knew that the real battle was coming soon. When morning arrived the next day, the Persian army advanced again. This time they came with full force. Thousands of cavalry riders charged toward the Roman lines. The thunder of hooves shook the earth. The ground trembled as the Persian riders accelerated toward the Roman positions. But when they reached the trenches, the perfect charge they had planned began to fall apart. Horses slowed down, formations broke, confusion spread through the Persian ranks. That moment of disorder was exactly what Belisarius had been waiting for. Roman archers opened fire. A rose rained down upon the advancing Persians. Many riders fell before they could even reach the Roman lines. Still, the Persian army pushed forward. Their elite units moved toward the Roman flanks, hoping to break through and collapse the Roman formation. For a moment the battle hung in the balance. Then Belisarius made his decisive move. Hidden cavalry units suddenly launched a surprise attack against the Persian flank. These fast-moving warriors struck with speed and precision. Caught off guard, the Persian formation began to fracture. At the same time, Roman cavalry charged from the opposite side. Now the Persians were trapped between Roman forces and the trenches that disrupted their movements. Panic began to spread. Once an army loses its formation, chaos follows quickly. Persian soldiers tried to regroup, but Roman forces pressed the attack harder and harder. Soon the Persian army began to retreat, and once retreat begins on a battlefield, it often becomes impossible to stop. Thousands of Persian soldiers fled the field. The Roman army had achieved a stunning victory against larger numbers, against one of the most powerful empires in the world. Belisarius had not simply defended Dara. He had defeated a massive Persian army using strategy, terrain, and timing. News of the victory spread rapidly across the Roman world. The young general who had commanded this brilliant victory suddenly became famous. Emperor Justinian I now knew that Belisarius was more than just a capable officer. He was a military genius. And this victory would only be the beginning. In the years that followed, Belisarius would lead Roman armies across the Mediterranean, reclaiming lost territories and winning battles that would secure his place among the greatest generals in history. But his legend truly began on the plains outside Dara, where intelligence defeated strength, where strategy defeated numbers, and where one brilliant commander changed the course of history. The battlefield of Dara is silent today. The armies are gone, the banners have faded, but the story of that battle still echoes through time. It reminds us that history is not always decided by the largest army or the strongest empire. Sometimes it is decided by leadership, strategy, and the courage to think differently. On that day in 530 AD, the young general Belisarius proved that brilliance on the battlefield could reshape the fate of empires. And the victory at Dara would become one of the greatest tactical triumphs of the ancient world. If you enjoyed this epic story from history, make sure to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, Dynasty History, for more legendary battles, powerful empires, and the incredible stories that shaped our world. Because history is not just about the past, it is about the legends that still inspire us today.